What's going on, guys? It's Tom from Project X, back with another Wednesday Weirdness. What we've been trying to do with our Wednesday Weirdness episodes is make them related to our main episodes, but also not make them too uniform, have a few different things featured in each one. This week we are talking UFOs and aliens. We are quickly going to share with you some of the scariest alien stories that can currently be found on Reddit. So this is real aliens from Reddit. Story number 1. My mum tells a story of her and her friend. Let's call her friend Lisa. When my mum and Lisa were teenagers, they were up on the roof of Lisa's house and they see a bright light in the sky. Next thing they know, the light is gone. Thing is, they've been on the roof for like 15 minutes, but something like 3 hours have passed. My mum doesn't remember anything about what happened during that time, and Lisa simply refuses to talk about it. She would answer my mum with things like, I don't know, and just drop it for quite a long time. So a couple of months later, my mum moves away and she loses contact with Lisa for about 10 years. She finally meets up with her again and immediately notices that something is strange about Lisa. Lisa appeared very distant to her, with a very dreamy demeanour. Like she was really happy and at peace for no real reason. After that, they talk for a bit. Lisa brings up the incident on the roof, and my mum says she still doesn't really remember anything about it. But Lisa remembers. She remembers everything. She said that at first it was all in bits and pieces and she couldn't remember any of it clearly. She was confused and scared and wanted to avoid discussing it. Then, as time passed, she began to remember more of it. She remembers it all clearly, and she remembers the 3 other times she was abducted after that clearly as well. At first, they paralysed her somehow and did all sorts of invasive experiments on her. But by the most recent time, they stopped probing her and began to talk to her. They didn't speak English or any other human language, but she could understand everything they said, even though she can't speak their language herself. Apparently, they told her all sorts of things, stuff about space, Earth itself, and most shockingly, predicted years beforehand that she would get pregnant in a specific year and it would be a stillborn, and that she would never be able to have children again. They also told her that it was not her fault, and that even though they made an attempt to save her from this fate, she would be unsuccessful. They also told her that they abducted my mother. Another time after this incident, Mum says she has no recollection of any other potential abductions, but she does have reoccurring nightmares of being abducted, but she's almost sure that they're just nightmares. Anyway, Lisa tells Mum that every time she speaks of them, she comes to understand the truth more and more. While Mum inquires what the truth is, Lisa just says that you will know eventually. And she says that once she's learned the truth, then everything will become wonderful. Mum has seen her a few more times over the years. Now we live in another state. And she apparently has a pretty normal life and doesn't obsess over alien stuff like some other abductees do. She only ever brings it up in passing, not like a central part of her daily life. Story number 2. When I was in 6th grade, I woke up one day with 4 very small holes on my upper right thigh. It looked like the skin had been cut out in perfect tiny circles, yet there was no blood. The circles were in a straight line and across my thigh horizontally, no more than 6 inches wide completely. I also felt very tired and couldn't remember which I dreamt, which is weird for me since I pretty much remember every dream I have every night. I put band-aids on them and went to school as usual. The next morning, I wake up and there are 3 new holes right above the previous 4. I woke up once again very tired and drowsy and was now weirded out by how symmetrical everything was that I showed it to my mum, who said it was most likely ants or spider bites. Next morning, 2 more holes above the previous 3. This was when I was seriously scared, since the holes now formed a triangle that pointed to my knee and they weren't scabbing over. I was so tired and confused and was scared to go to bed, so I stayed up really late, but woke up the next morning not even knowing when I had fallen into sleep, only dark and in the morning. When I did wake up, I was suddenly very alert, and when I threw my blanket off my legs, I found all the holes completely gone. No scabbing or scarring or any trace of the circles on my thigh. I showed my mum and she just brushed it off as if they'd healed like any other cut. I'm honestly not sure if this is related, but I do feel like there is a correlation. After this, I couldn't really comprehend math anymore. I'd excelled at math all my life, but after this incident, it was like numbers had no meaning to me, and I couldn't figure out simple equations. I went to an advanced school and had been learning algebra and geometry and was doing great, but then it was like poof, all my math knowledge and comprehension was gone. To this day, I can't even do simple addition problems without double checking them. TLDR was most likely probed. Aliens have taken my math smarts with them. Number 3. This happened to me when I was 10 years old. In Calgary, Alberta. It was 1970. I was walking home from school, cutting across the school sports field. Our house wasn't far. We lived across the street from the school. There wasn't any other kids around since I had stayed late for volleyball practice, and the rest of the students had gone home 45 minutes earlier when school let out. It's about 4:30 in the afternoon. Something caught my attention from the corner of my eye. I stopped and turned to look right back at it. Floating directly above a house facing the schoolyard was a large UFO. I was in the middle of the football field, so this is about 60, 70 yards from where I stood. The UFO is big and almost touching the roof of the house. It is completely centered on the house, but it's so big, it also is above the house on the left and right. The lots that are 50 feet wide, which puts the UFO at about 150 feet across and perhaps 25 to 30 feet tall. It's very bright, giving off a harsh white light, which is difficult to look at since it hurt my eyes. I look away back towards my house and see a car and a motorcycle on the side of the street which intersects the street with the UFO. The street is about half a block away, and I remember being surprised and confused that the drivers are not reacting to the UFO, which clearly must be visible to them and so obvious since it's so bright, but the traffic is continuing as normal. At that point I became aware that something is forcing me to turn my head back toward the UFO. I'm turning and my field of view is changing, but I'm not the one doing it. I struggle to turn away, but I simply can't control any of my body. I remember a feeling of panic. Then the next thing I can remember, I'm walking onto my house. It's about 9:30 at night and dark outside. I can't recall anything of the last 5 hours. My parents are furious at me for being so late. Apparently my parents and my 2 brothers have been trying to find me for hours. A voice or thought popped into my head, told me to tell them that I was not feeling well and I had to go to bed. I had no idea where this voice or thought came from, but I do exactly as it suggests and run upstairs to the room and get ready to bed. The next day I still can't explain what happened, and my mother is even more angry with me since my new school shoes are ruined, since the tops of them are all scuffed and dirty, like I was dragged face down across the ground with my feet still dragging on the ground. I told my older brothers what happened and they suggested I should keep quiet about it, since nobody would believe me. Good advice as it turns out, since in the many years since, most of the people I've shared the story with don't really know what to say. Many years later I was looking at my old school workbox for the first time, and they're full of drawings of UFOs, all of the same design, and with more detail than I can recall from memory. For example, in my memory, I can't remember seeing any windows in the UFO since the light was too bright to make out details, but in my drawings there were large windows all around the UFO, some with faces looking out. Number 4. My fiancé, boyfriend at the time, had just gone home from work. He went into our kitchen and walked through the bedroom and into the bathroom and just stopped for a moment. I had a weird feeling. I still can't really put a name on it, so I called to him and asked him to come here. I walked out of the bedroom, and as soon as we came within view of each other, that was it. The next thing we knew, we were both waking up, laying side by side in our bed, flat on our backs, on top of our blankets, and still fully dressed in down to our shoes. 3 hours had gone by. It was so odd and disorientating, and though we had both just come to, we were extremely tired. We joked about lost time at first, but the more we thought about it, the more weirded out we became about the whole ordeal. This isn't proof or anything, but I've never been able to think of anything else it could have been. So that's all we've got here, guys. We hope you enjoyed listening to some of these creepy alien abduction stories. Have you seen a UFO or had any alien abduction experience yourself? If so, get in touch, let us know. And always subscribe, like, follow us on socials. And remember, we drop new episodes every Sunday and Wednesday. Thanks for watching.